Good afternoon, all the students, and welcome to this every second webinar in the virtual version of the Aalto Talent Expo. My name is Helios, and I'll be hosting our discussion today. But before we start, a few words about AFRY. So we are a global leading company in the fields of engineering, design, and advisory services. And we have recently reached the proud age of a toddler. So we were established in 2019 when Sweden-based OF and Finland-based Böhr, which is probably the more familiar company for you, came together to join forces as AFRY. And now we are a global actor with almost 17,000 very devoted team players. We have offices in almost 50 countries worldwide, and our project presence spreads to some 100 countries across the globe. We operate under 5 different divisions, namely infrastructure, digital and industrial solutions, process industries, energy, and management consulting. And today, you are going to hear a little bit more about the last 2 divisions, so energy and management consulting. I have in our studio here, I have 4 AFRY experts, 2 from the energy side and 2 from management consulting, who will soon tell you a little bit more about what they actually do here at AFRY. So let's get to the introductions. I would like to hear your names, positions, maybe a little bit about your study backgrounds, and most importantly, how you ended up here at AFRY. So Sara, for example, I know that you have graduated from the Helsinki University of Technology, but your road to where you are right now hasn't been exactly straightforward, right?
Well, one could say so, indeed. Thank you, Hilja. So Sara Söderberg is my name. I graduated, as Hilja said, from Helsinki University of Technology some years back. And today I am a vice president at management consulting at AFRY, leading the global bioindustry business. When I studied at Helsinki University of Technology, i.e. TKK, I studied paper technology, international marketing and business strategy, as well as converting. So a little bit more than what one would traditionally study. Yet again, a combination education at that point was not necessarily the usual one. After graduation, I started within the industry. However, soon after a few years, joined consulting, which I truly enjoyed, and as Hilja pointed out, wasn't exactly the straightforward route. I worked over 7 years abroad in Italy, in Canada, in the US, and then after 15 years working from an analyst to a director at then Böhr, joined a industry company again, and after some years I returned as recently as 3 years ago back to AFRY, and now in the position of vice president as mentioned. Nikita, you're also within management consulting.
So hello everyone, my name is Nikita Senkin, also for management consulting division. There I work though with mostly energy topics. I work here as a senior consultant, so basically that means that I spend my days mostly managing different types of projects. I've been here for 5 years now. I also started at Böhr and now became AFRY a year ago. It started also actually in Helsinki University of Technology, so back when I started in 2008, I think, it was still TKK, and then quite soon after that it became Aalto University. There I studied first electrical engineering. After that I did my bachelor in electrical engineering and business studies as a minor, then decided to do my master's in control engineering. And then after that, I decided to still study a little bit more and did this SEMS Masters in International Management program, available, I think, to all Aalto University students still in the School of Economics. And after that, I joined Pöyry. So I say it's another very complex career path because this is my first real job after graduating, and I'm still here because I quite liked it. But you have a bit more different background. You were a meteorologist, right?
Yeah, so hello everyone. My name is Elina Heinilä and I work as a technical consultant at AFRY's wind and solar project team. I have been now working at AFRY during 3 years, so I also started doing overtimes. I worked 1 year as a trainee and now I have been working 2 years as my current position. And yeah, as Nikita mentioned, I have a little bit different study background than maybe most of the people at AFRY. I studied first meteorology at the University of Helsinki. It's their part of physics. But then, like during my studies there, I became very interested in renewable energy, and I started to think that maybe I still would like to study on other master in some engineering field. And at the beginning, I wasn't sure if I was going to do that because I was a little bit worried, like if it was going to be too many years at the university. And actually, at the time, I was exchange student at Costa Rica, when I noticed that they had opened an application period for those advanced energy solutions master programs for the first time at Aalto. And luckily I decided to apply because I think it has been one of the decisions which has also bring me to Pöyry. This is also for me my first like real job, but I have liked it a lot here. What about Pekka?
Well, I have a bit longer route here. Also, I'm a bit like Sara, I'm working for the company for the second time already. I studied in Helsinki University of Technology, Energy Engineering, and back in 2007 I finished with my master's and then continued on doctoral studies. So 2010 I was ready with licentiate thesis and decided that now it's time to get a real job for a change, and then I saw an opening what was then Pöyry Energy and came to the company, and for the first years I worked on energy efficiency. We did energy audits for power plants and different industrial sites, and then I did a little bit work on power plant guarantee tests and a little bit on this and that. And 2014 I got a phone call and was offered a job in an energy company that's now called Nevel. So I moved to client side of the table for 3 years. And then I got another phone call from our boss that now it's time to come back to Pöyry. So 2017 I joined again and became department manager, what was then power plant technology. And then we joined forces with Olaf, so I got a different team, 2019 I think. And then there was another change last year when I started as the director of test services. I'm here today, so no big plan, just doing whatever comes up and answering the phone and ring.
I was about to say that answering clearly is important phone calls. Great, thank you everyone for sharing. I really always enjoy hearing how people have ended up here because there are no two stories that would be exactly similar. And hey, actually at this point, our dear audience, I'm going to save a couple of minutes from the end of our discussion for your questions. So in the case that there is anything that you have always wondered about AFRY, now is the time to ask it. Just write it there on the chat. But hey, our topic today is changing energy markets and transition to bioeconomy. Several big words, two big themes, but what do these actually mean to you? Like, can you see these in your everyday work maybe? And preferably, if you have a concrete project example that you have self been involved in, and it's related to one or both of these topics, please share. Nikita, how do these topics reflect in the energy sector?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, of course, energy sector is probably one of the, in a sense, foundations or one of the pillars of this transition to a more or to a greener economy, to a greener society. And of course, if you do that, it's you can see it pretty much everywhere in all of the projects. The example project I would like to bring out here is that we do a fair amount of due diligence projects. Due diligence is what you do as part of a transaction. So I see when you're buying or selling a company, then you want to hire a consultant, or you hire a consultant to do a due diligence of that company, which is basically looking at the company, looking at its business, its assets, and making sure that everything is as is and everything looks fine, that the company has a bright, in a sense, has a good future, the revenues are going to be developing the way they're, well, in a positive way, and there are no surprises there. And there, it's been actually quite an interesting change to see how this kind of the whole sustainability and bioeconomy thinking, like you can even see there, if you're thinking like 5 years back when I started the company, issues like sustainability, for example, sustainable fuel source in the case of an energy company, it was mostly a question about whether there is a regulatory risk involved, i.e. potential investors were just considering that if they buy this company, is there a risk that the legal framework will change, and that creates a risk for the company. For example, the fuel or whatever the fuel they're using becomes suddenly more expensive or even phased out, for example, coal. But nowadays, increasingly, it's not anymore just a kind of a risk consideration, but it's one of the primary considerations for all the investors, that they require us and they require the company to do their sourcing and their operations in a sustainable way. So it's moved from being just a mitigation thing and potential risk to an actual core consideration, that they require the company to be green in their operations, and they require, for example, if they source biomass, they require that biomass to be sourced sustainably, and they require the company to be able to prove that their whole value chain is sustainable. So that's been quite interesting transition. And I think that's pretty much the same as you have seen also in Sara and your, because I mean, like me and Sara, we represent kind of the two big topics that we work in the management consulting. And this is what I've seen from the energy side, but as far as I understood, I mean, you guys also work a fair amount on due diligence, and this is what also you have seen in your projects.
Absolutely, and I think, Nikita, that was an excellent example in the sense that it also combines both the bio industry as well as energy, and the linkage there is biomass. As bio industry, and perhaps it warrants a bit of an explanation, it basically is anything based on bio-based raw materials. So value chains deriving from bio-based raw materials. So it can be forest biomass pellets to wood products to paper, packaging, hygiene, biofuels, biomaterials, biochemicals. So you just name it, you find it everywhere. To complement the picture that Nikita just gave on management consulting offering, what we do in addition to transaction services, we also look into the forward-looking market analysis, as well as strategy engagements and operational excellence. And I could bring an example of a strategy engagement. This particular example, I was involved as a salesperson, basically. So I was intimately involved in selling that project to a client, and then as in a role of client contact, I also continued as the project supervisor, i.e. helping the project manager and the team to arrive at concrete conclusions and framing the problem and basically liaising with the client. In this particular case, we assisted a client with diversification strategy. In the client's situation, they are an established, large, amongst the biggest in their own industry, a player globally, and with their declining core business, they wanted to seek opportunities to ensure profitable growth also in the future. And one may think immediately that is that a publication paper company? No, it was not. Something else that was declining, and our task was to identify and evaluate, also quantifiably evaluate different business opportunities, build a roadmap to profitable growth, partially defensive, but also definitely offensive. And we arrive at, I would say, excellent conclusions in a very first project that I've ever done completely, totally online. So our team, 6 persons with client team more than 10, that no in-person meetings took place. So that was quite of a task, but the team did extremely well. So whose turn is it?
Well, maybe I can continue on the topic of biomass since we're here. So in energy division, our main business line is to help our clients to build sustainable power plants. And in Finland, that has a long time meant mostly biomass. And maybe one project I can share from last year is one of the biggest we did in test services was Aalto water power plant in Pori in Western Finland, where they built a new power plant consisting of a boiler and a turbine. And after that, they are able to use 100% biomass for most of the heating season. And most of the people who work in energy here in Finland are involved in earlier phases of the project. So they do design, engineering, procurement, these kind of things. And in test services, our job begins when the plant is ready. So we do guarantee tests. And in Pori, we have the full scope of guarantee tests. So performance guarantees in the turbine, performance guarantees in the boiler, emission guarantees, noise, vibrations, conveyor capacities, the whole thing. And we do other things also than sit in the office. So we always go to the site when we measure things, put on our overalls. In this case, it was between 4 and 6 people, 2 vans full of equipment, and around 4 weeks total time. So there's a lot of work involved also in the field. We don't all sit here and do design. And as mentioned, biomass has been mostly the thing in Finland, but in the future we will probably look also at other renewables. And wind is one of the most promising that we see today. So maybe Helena can share some good examples on that side.
Yeah, so the change in the energy markets is very easy to see in my job and in our projects, because like during these 3 years that I have been working at the wind power has increased so fast in Finland. And also what we see, like most of the time we work with onshore wind power, but there is also more interest also for offshore wind power and for PV systems. I think, well, like from the projects, something that we can see the change is that there is so much interest in the wind power that we work quite much time with greenfield studies, which means that we are trying to identify totally new areas where the wind parks could be built. So, like before the client will have, like for example, a measurement campaign to see like the real wind conditions. We already model some raw estimation about the wind conditions, which could be the best places to have the turbines. There is a lot of different experts needed. We have electrical engineering and engineering. So it has been very interesting years in AFRY.
That's very nice to hear. And I think that it's great how different elements are shared between our different divisions, and how huge a diversity of different projects there can be, and you can be involved in when working at AFRY.
I think that's actually one of the lures into consulting and into working at AFRY, the variability and the different types of opportunities that one gets in in the company.
I definitely agree. And my understanding is, and it's quite typical in the house, that you can also change from one team to another, and even from one division to another, to like broaden your knowledge and maybe learn something new and try something new.
Yeah, and especially you can do that on a short-term basis through different projects, but then of course also on a longer-term basis. I mean, I'm a good example of it because I've been in a number of places.
And I as well, like of course I have only been here for a little bit less than 2 years, but I did my thesis in our process industries division, from which I hopped to management consulting. But hey, our vision at AFRY is making future, so let's speculate next what might come. So take a wild guess, what will be the biggest breakthroughs in energy and bioeconomic sectors in the next 3 to 5 years? Pekka, what would you say? What will revolutionize the energy sector?
Well, for the power plants, I think the biggest change will be the level of automation, because we live in a world where cars are going to drive themselves soon, and we have artificial intelligence coming up in all kinds of fields, and we see the same thing happening in the power industry. The last company I worked for is a good example, because when I went there in 2014, we had 6 power plants all around Finland, and in every power plant there was a man in shift 24/7 doing the operation. And when I left 2017, there was just one guy in a central location who could operate all the 6 power plants, and also an external client was power plants and a couple of dozen heating plants distributing networks, and a huge amount of assets compared what was just 3 years earlier. And probably we will see the same change also in other things that are happening in power plants, production planning, optimization, all kinds of things that used to be done manually will get automated in the next 3 to 5 years, and that will be a very big change.
Yeah. Elina, I think you also were I think that you could maybe add something here.
Then what I think that we will see in MITA will be like the increasement in offshoring power and also in PV systems.
Yeah. And offshore wind is?
Like wind on the sea.
Yeah. Thank you. So Sara, what would you guess about the bioeconomic sector? So many possibilities.
Oh yes, absolutely. I don't think
you can choose a couple.
Oh, thank you. I probably wouldn't do justice to the broad area if I only chose one. To a little bit follow what Pekka was explaining about the automation, digitalization absolutely is coming, and the opportunities. It's truly an enabler in many ways, and as an enabler, it will increase efficiency, cost savings, but also significantly sustainability. And yes, it will be applied thoroughly in operations, but it may also be applied thoroughly in, say, forest management and forest planning, as well as in business intelligence, for example, just to name a few. Decarbonization, be that partially through renewable solutions or hydrogen. Power to X, and one of my favorites is definitely plastic recycling, that I expect is coming. Well, it exists. All the technologies, well, not all, but many of the technologies exist already. It's just a question of being able to invest upon those and create through truly circular economies around recycling plastics as well. Textile revolution is definitely coming. I don't think it's going to happen thoroughly within 3 to 5 years. So I'll stop here because the limitation for 3 to 5 years is shortening the listing, definitely.
Yeah, and it's very hard to pick just a couple because so many things could happen. But I definitely agree with you on the power to X and the plastic recycling, because I also really want to see what's going to happen in those sectors. But hey, this is the perfect timing for, are there any questions in the audience?
Yes, we have 4 questions, and
We
the
might
first.
have to take. Well, let's start with the
Yeah.
first one.
Yeah, sure. So the first question is, what do you have to comment on positions at AFRY related to optimization and machine learning?
Oh.
Well,
Your expertise.
not quite my expertise, but I know that we have people working with that in the process industry division, and also we have a lot of people working with it in Sweden.
Okay.
And now we have this digital X thing that's going to be all over the company, where they can help all divisions in things related to those topics.
Okay.
And those skills are especially within the core of AFRY strategy going forward. So definitely, if somebody's interested, I'm certain that we have common interest at least, if nothing beyond.
Great. So the second question is, what kind of skills and earlier experience do you have especially value or expect from your Future Stars trainee program applicants?
I have to say that that's a very good question, and that's exactly something that I would have asked as a student. Sara, do you have special opinions here?
I would say that, of course, we assume that each applicant is excellent in terms of the academics, but then what I do see of value is absolutely the curious mind and eagerness to learn. And those are the 2 most important to me in a sense of kind of person's mindset. It's not a capability per se, or maybe it is to some extent. And then of course comes a long list of analytics and or analytical mind and so forth. But those would be the 2 topics of mine.
And a little bit continuing on that, I mean, for example, we in management consulting, we work on a very, very broad range of problems, and therefore it's hard to pinpoint specific knowledge or specific skills that are critical. It's kind of the ability to be comfortable with and to be able to find kind of some common solutions or common themes, or kind of a capability to openly approach these complex problems and open-ended problems. That's kind of that's critical, not necessarily certain key topics.
Yeah. Good point.
So, Elina, do you have anything to add?
Well, I agree, of course, what you said, but maybe I can ask or add the work experience. I always look at it as a positive thing. If the applicants have been working with different things, it doesn't have to be energy, but they have been active during summer times and doing something for the living. That's a plus.
Yeah, that's a good thing to point out.
Then there are 2 similar questions. So is it possible for first-year bachelor student to join AFRY Future Stars program in Finland? And is the Future Stars trainee program suitable for recent graduated PhDs?
Okay.
I think there's a limitation on the length of the program. I believe it's 3 years. Or was it
1 year?
My understanding is, yeah, it's a 1-year program.
Yes.
And I know that it's mostly directed, or like, let's say primarily directed to master's level students. So of course,
the idea would be that you're finished with the studies when the program ends.
Yes, yeah, it's part of the program is that you are usually offered a master's thesis position. Yeah.
But then again, in addition to the stars, Future Stars, we also do every single summer have normal trainees, or trainees that only work for 1 summer. So it's not the only way to apply to work with AFRY.
Yeah, that's an excellent point.
And then there's another question about the Future Stars program again. What is the Future Stars program interviews like, and are they like common cases such as in MBB interviews?
Quite a lot depends on which department, kind of which team are you applying for? For example, our team, we do cases as part of the interview process, but I don't think all of the teams do cases as part of the interview process. So it really depends on where you apply.
Of course, my assumption is that if you are contacted and asked for an interview, my assumption is that you are informed during that call what the nature of the interview. So you can be prepared in the case that there is a case waiting for you. Okay, it looks like our time is up. Thank you for all the questions. And everyone, thank you for joining, despite the challenges that the weather offered for us today. My plan was to advert this AFRY Future Stars program here in the end, but I gather that it might not be necessary. But hey, there are still a couple of days time to apply. So in the case that you just now heard about it first time, it's a one-year program directed to master's year students. And though the tasks and content of the program are tailored based on each person's personal interests and capabilities and situation, more information is at our website. You can find it there, and remember to apply by Friday. But thank you everyone for joining. Please everyone have a great rest of the week and stay safe.